What if the person you are waiting to become can never actually save you? It sounds strange because almost everything around us teaches the opposite. We are told to improve ourselves, build ourselves, reinvent ourselves, become stronger, wiser, richer, calmer, more successful. We imagine that somewhere ahead there is a version of us who has finally figured everything out. A future self who wakes up without fear, walks without doubt, has enough money, enough confidence, enough love, enough certainty. And so we keep moving toward that person. But there is a quiet question hiding underneath all of this. What if becoming is not the problem? What if the problem is believing that you must become someone else before you are allowed to be at peace? Think about how easily the mind creates a future version of you. You see yourself with the better career, the beautiful home, the peaceful relationship, the healthier body, the successful business. You imagine opening your eyes one morning and finally feeling that strange sense of arrival. Finally, I am enough. Finally, I can relax. Finally, life makes sense. But notice something peculiar. The future self you imagine is still imagining another future. The person who has everything today may still be thinking about tomorrow. The person who achieves the goal may immediately create another goal. The person who becomes admired may become frightened of losing admiration. The person who becomes wealthy may become occupied with protecting wealth. The finish line moves because the mind that created it is still moving. It is like chasing the horizon. You can walk toward it for years, but the horizon never gets closer. Not because you are failing, but because the horizon was never a destination. And perhaps the future self is something like that. A useful direction, perhaps. A picture that can inspire action, but not a place where your consciousness will suddenly arrive and say, now I may finally live. Because you are already living. That is the strange part. You spend so much energy constructing the person you will become that you can overlook the person who is breathing right now. The ego is fascinated with improvement because improvement gives it a story. I am becoming better. I am becoming successful. I am becoming spiritual. I am becoming disciplined. I am becoming enlightened. And there is nothing wrong with growth. A tree grows. A child grows. A river changes its course. Life itself is movement. But there is a subtle difference between growing naturally and treating your present existence as a defective draft. When you believe that the person you are today is merely an unfinished version of the person you are supposed to be, every moment becomes a waiting room. You are not really here. You are preparing to be here later. You tell yourself, when I earn more, then I will relax. When I find the right person, then I will feel loved. When I become successful, then I will feel worthy. When I understand myself completely, then I will finally be at peace. But what happens when that moment arrives? Often, another condition appears and another, and another. The mind is remarkably creative at postponing peace. It can turn even success into another form of waiting. Perhaps this is why some people achieve things they once dreamed about and, and still feel strangely empty. They expected the achievement to change the quality of consciousness itself. But a new house does not automatically create a new mind. More money does not automatically create freedom from fear. Recognition does not automatically dissolve insecurity. A relationship does not automatically end loneliness. You can change the scenery while carrying the same inner argument with you. And this is where the illusion of becoming becomes interesting. Perhaps the future self is not a person waiting somewhere ahead. Perhaps it is an image created by the present mind, and if the present mind is restless, the future image may simply become another place to project that restlessness. Imagine someone who spends 20 years building a career because they believe success will finally give them freedom. They work late, sacrifice weekends, postpone holidays, postpone family dinners, postpone sleep. One day, they say, one day I will have enough. Eventually, they have enough. But now, they are afraid of losing what they built. So, the freedom they imagined becomes another responsibility. They were not foolish, they were simply human. They believed that an external change would create an internal arrival. And we do this in relationships too. Someone spends years searching for the person who will finally make them feel complete. They find someone wonderful, but now another fear appears. What if they leave? What if they change? What if someone better comes along? The desire for love quietly becomes the fear of losing love. The same pattern appears everywhere. We reach for the future because we believe peace is hiding there, but perhaps peace was never hiding there. Perhaps we were simply not looking here. So, for a moment, let us stop, not physically, perhaps just inwardly. Imagine that you are sitting somewhere completely quiet, perhaps beside a slow river in the early evening. The sky is wide above you. There is no need to achieve anything here. No one is watching. No one is evaluating you. Let your breathing become natural. You do not need to breathe perfectly. You do not need to meditate correctly. Just notice that breathing is happening in and out. The river moves without asking whether it is moving correctly. The wind touches the trees without needing permission. Clouds cross the sky without trying to become better clouds. And for a moment, notice your own body, the weight of your hands, the feeling of the ground beneath you, the movement of air across your face. Perhaps there are sounds nearby, birds, leaves, distant traffic, your own breathing. And beneath all of these sounds, there is something quieter, awareness. You do not have to manufacture it. You are already aware. Now imagine that someone is approaching you from across the landscape. At first, you cannot see clearly. But as the figure comes closer, you realize something strange. It is you, not exactly the person you are now. This is the version of you that you have spent years trying to become. Perhaps they are wealthy. They live in a beautiful place. There is sunlight coming through enormous windows. There are quiet mornings, beautiful surroundings, freedom to travel, work that feels meaningful, people who respect them, a bank account that no longer creates fear. Perhaps this version of you has confidence. Perhaps they speak calmly. Perhaps they seem completely comfortable in their own skin. Look at them. Notice their face, their posture, their eyes, and ask yourself something very gently. Is this person finally free? Perhaps they are, but look again. Do they still have thoughts? Do they still experience uncertainty? Do they still love things that can change? Do they still know that people can leave? Do they still understand that bodies grow older, seasons change, fortunes rise and fall? Perhaps even this successful version of you still has a human mind, and suddenly the distance between you begins to disappear. You realize that you were never really chasing a person. You were chasing a feeling. You wanted safety. You wanted peace. You wanted permission to breathe. You wanted to stop proving yourself. You wanted to feel that your existence was acceptable. And perhaps the future version of you was simply the symbol you created for all of that. Now, imagine sitting beside that future self. No conversation is necessary. The river continues moving. The sky continues changing. The light slowly disappears from the water. And for a moment, there is nothing you need to become, nothing you need to prove, nothing you need to fix. The future self looks at you, and perhaps you notice something almost uncomfortable. They do not possess the peace you thought they would, because peace was never stored inside their possessions. It was never hidden in their career. It was never waiting inside their appearance. It was never guaranteed by their achievements. They may enjoy all of those things, and they should. Money can create comfort. Success can create opportunities. A beautiful home can be beautiful. Travel can be wonderful. Meaningful work can be deeply fulfilling. There is nothing wrong with any of it, but none of these things can do the job of consciousness. They cannot tell you how to experience your own life. And suddenly you understand something. The future self cannot save you because the future self is still only an idea appearing in the present. The river is here, your breath is here, your life is here. And perhaps that is enough to begin with. When you open your eyes again, notice how strange it is that the mind immediately wants to return to its plans. What should I do next? Where should I go? What should I fix? How can I improve? But what if improvement does not require rejection? What if you could grow without declaring war on yourself? There is a great difference between saying, I want to become healthier, and saying, I will finally be worthy when I become healthier. There is a difference between wanting financial stability and believing that money will prove your value. There is a difference between wanting love and believing another person must complete you. There is a difference between ambition and self-rejection. The first can be life expressing itself. The second can become a prison. Perhaps the healthiest form of growth begins when you stop treating yourself as an enemy. You do not yell at a flower for not opening quickly enough. You do not stand beside a river demanding that it reach the ocean by tonight. You allow movement, you participate in it, you learn, you adjust, you continue. But you stop turning your life into a courtroom where your present self is always on trial. And perhaps this changes the meaning of self-improvement entirely. You do not improve yourself because you hate who you are. You grow because life is naturally creative. You learn because curiosity is alive. You change because nothing living remains exactly the same. The ego, however, wants a final identity. It wants to say, "This is who I am: successful, spiritual, intelligent, important, strong, loved." But life keeps moving, and every fixed identity eventually becomes too small for the person living inside it. So perhaps freedom is not discovering the perfect identity. Perhaps freedom is becoming less dependent on having one. Who are you when nobody is applauding? Who are you when your achievements are temporarily forgotten? Who are you when you are not comparing yourself with someone else? Who are you before the story about yourself begins? These questions do not necessarily require answers. They require silence. And silence can be frightening because the mind is accustomed to filling every empty space with explanation. It wants to know what happens next. It wants certainty. It wants a map. But uncertainty is not necessarily a flaw in existence. It is the condition that allows existence to unfold. You do not know what tomorrow contains. That is frightening. But it is also why tomorrow is alive. If you knew every detail of your future, life would become less like music and more like a recording you had already heard. A song is beautiful, partly because the next note has not yet arrived. A sunrise is beautiful because you cannot freeze it. A relationship matters because people change. A life matters because it ends. Impermanence is not the enemy of meaning. It is one of the reasons meaning exists at all. Think of someone holding a photograph of a person they love. The photograph matters because the moment captured in it is gone. If nothing ever changed, perhaps nothing would feel precious. Yet we spend enormous amounts of energy trying to prevent change. We want relationships that never shift, bodies that never age, money that never disappears, careers that never become uncertain, emotions that never become painful. But this is like asking the ocean to remain still. The ocean does not fail because it has waves. The waves are what the ocean is doing. And perhaps your changing mind is not proof that something has gone wrong. Perhaps it is simply life moving through you. There will be days when you feel certain. There will be days when you feel lost. There will be days when ambition feels powerful. There will be days when you want nothing but rest. There will be moments of confidence and moments of doubt. You do not need to turn every state into an identity. A cloud does not announce, "This is who I am forever." It passes, so can a thought, so can fear, so can a season of confusion. And perhaps one of the deepest forms of freedom is learning not to build a permanent house around a temporary experience. You can have goals, you can plan, you can save money, you can build a career, you can fall deeply in love, you can dream of a beautiful future. But you do not have to sacrifice the present in exchange for the possibility of eventually deserving it. There is something very quiet that happens when you stop asking the future to give meaning to the present. The present begins to reveal its own texture, the warmth of sunlight, the taste of food, a conversation, a breath, the sound of rain. The simple fact that your eyes are open and the world is happening, maybe this is what we miss when we become obsessed with becoming. We imagine life as a staircase, steep after step, higher and higher. But perhaps life is less like a staircase and more like music. There is no note that exists only to justify the next note. Each sound participates in the whole. The quiet parts matter, the pauses matter, the unfinished parts matter, even the mistakes become part of the rhythm, and maybe your life is like that. Not a project waiting to be completed, not a failed version of some imaginary future, but an unfolding experience. So perhaps you can stop for a moment, let your shoulders soften, let the breath move naturally. There is nothing you need to solve in this exact moment. Nothing you need to become before this breath counts. The future may still come. You may still become wealthier. You may still succeed. You may fall in love. You may change careers. You may discover new parts of yourself. And perhaps you should. But none of those possibilities need to be turned into a condition for being alive. You can walk toward tomorrow without abandoning today. You can become without believing that you were nothing before you changed. You can grow without running away from yourself. And perhaps eventually, the distinction between who you are and who you are becoming becomes very soft, because the person you called your future self was never waiting somewhere beyond the horizon. It was an image created by the person sitting here now. And the person sitting here now is already part of the mystery. So let everything become quiet for a moment. Feel the breath, not as something you are controlling, just something happening. Feel the body. Hear whatever sounds are around you. Notice the space between one thought and the next. You do not have to fill that space. You do not have to name it. You do not have to understand yourself completely. Perhaps understanding has been given too much importance. Perhaps there are things in life that become clearer when you stop demanding that they explain themselves. A tree does not need to understand its own growth to grow. A river, a river does not need a philosophy of water to reach the sea. And you do not need a complete theory of yourself to live. There is nothing wrong with wanting more, wanting money, wanting love, wanting recognition, wanting adventure, wanting health, wanting meaningful work, wanting a beautiful life. Desire is not the enemy. The exhaustion begins when desire whispers that your life cannot begin until it is satisfied. That is the illusion. The future may bring wonderful things, but it cannot bring you out of the present. Every future you reach becomes another present. Every destination becomes another place where you stand. Every achievement becomes another moment that asks to be lived. So perhaps the question is not, who will I become? Perhaps the quieter question is, can I fully inhabit the person who is here, not perfectly, not permanently, just now? Can you let this moment exist without forcing it to become something else? Can you let yourself exist without immediately turning existence into a project? Maybe there is a strange kindness in doing that, because the person you have been trying so desperately to become may not be waiting to rescue you. They may simply be waiting for you to stop running long enough to notice that you were never abandoned. The future will arrive when it arrives. The river will continue. The sky will darken. Morning will come. Your life will change in ways you cannot predict. And through all of it, there will be this simple mystery. You are here, breathing, seeing, feeling, aware, not finished, not broken, not finally complete, just alive. And perhaps that is the secret the future self could never give you. Not an answer, not a perfect identity, not a final destination, but the quiet recognition that there was never a moment when you had to become someone else before this life could begin. It was already happening. You were already inside it. And for a moment, without reaching forward, without looking backward, without trying to become anything at all, you can feel it.